How's it going? Okay, last episode on the Playfab tutorials that I had lined up. We are doing leaderboards and statistics. So following on from what we did in the last episode was getting and setting user data, manipulating it and pushing it back up. We're now going to carry on from that and integrate a leaderboard based on the XP of the user or the high score. Let's do XP. So yeah, let's get into that. All right, so over here, this is just showing where we left off. We added in the get user data. Once we've signed in, we retrieved the data. We then just added two little some debug or some developer tools for testing XP, so adding XP there and changing out the player name and then setting that user data. What we want to do is on our Playfab dashboard, we want to go over to the leaderboard section over here. And we're going to go and create a new leaderboard. Pretty sure I deleted that one. Anyways, new leaderboard. Statistic name, let's do this as level. The reset frequency for this, we're just going to leave it at manual. We don't want to do any sort of daily, weekly, or whatever. And the aggregation method will be that the maximum is always used. So your highest value. Save that out. And now level is a statistic that is now available to us to use. So the statistic is attached to every single player account, and then Playfab goes through all the players and looks at the statistic and then aggregates all that information and then constructs a leaderboard based on that. We can then go and fetch that leaderboard with a couple different parameters. So we can say we want only the top 10 places, and then it will return the leaderboard for that. Or we can also get the leaderboard around a specific player. So we can say we want to know your specific position within the leaderboard rankings, and then how many positions around that. So if you want 10 positions around you, you can get that. Cool, so we've got level over there ready to go. Let's go back to Unity and to our scripting. And inside the left-hand side of our lobby script here, so if we just turn up the alpha for that, we've got our scoreboard. And under content, we've got a scroll view with a bunch of content there. And I've already created a prefab over here, high score entry, which can just be instantiated in here as many times as we need. And then we'll just get 1 to 10 positions in the leaderboard there. We also just need to create a script real quick for that prefab to load that information in, but we will get there. Right, so the leaderboard, we're going to set that up much the same way as we set up the get and set user data. So we're going to start off by setting up our functions in the user account manager. And that's just going to be statistics and leaderboards. Okay, then we're going to do a public void get statistic. And we need a string for that statistic. So in this case, our one is called level. So we're just going to give it, let's just call it key to keep in line with the same formatting as we've done here. Because you could get other statistics as well. You could get statistics on high score or lap time or whatever. Then we also need another one for public void set statistic. And that's going to be key, and then it's also going to be value, which is actually an int. So all the leaderboards are int values because it needs some kind of way to determine what is higher than something else. So we set the statistic according to a value over there. In the get, we're going to use the Playfab client API once again, and it's going to be get player statistics. and it's a new statistic request, followed by a response, followed by the error. And separate that up. And let's check, what do we need? We need the statistic names. So that's going to equal a new list of string. And in this case, we're just doing a singular key. Once we've got that request, we're going to just do a log over here. And we're going to do get statistic. And we're going to do unsuccessful get statistic. And we're going to give it the error message, so that we know what went wrong if it did in fact go wrong. We're going to follow the same thing as we've done here in the past with the get user data. We want to then broadcast an event with whatever data we were looking for. So right at the top, we're going to go and duplicate on user data retrieved, and we're going to do on statistic retrieved, and we are once again doing a key and a value, except that this time the value is going to be in an int format. So once we get it, the response, we're going to then invoke the event along with the key and response dot statistics, which is a list of statistic value. We're only getting one of these, so it's safe to assume that the statistic we're getting is the first one in that list, right? And then inside that statistic, we are then getting value, which is an int. Okay. What we do want to also make sure, just in case, for null reference checking, we want to make sure that statistics.count is above 0 as well, just to make sure that there is in fact a statistic available for us to take. We should probably check that statistics does not equal null as well. Yeah, that'll do. Cool, so we get the statistic and we fire off the event to broadcast that statistic. With the set, we can do the same thing, Playfab client API dot update player statistics, new request, and response and error. Separate that out, and what do we need here? We need statistics equals new, and it's a list of statistic update. And inside of that, we're going to do a new statistic update, which then wants the statistic name, which equals our key in this case, and the value, which equals our value. Okay, so that loads up all our data, ready to go. And I'm just going to copy paste these. And instead of get, it's going to be set. In the response, once we set the statistic, we might want to do something thereafter. We might want to follow on the same process we did here with the Unity action. Let's just drop that in there. All right, so that then sets the actual statistic for the player, and the statistic is updated immediately on the player's profile. The leaderboard, however, is, because it's processed from the entire user base's statistics, it can take some time for it to actually update. So the way I've kind of figured a way around this is to periodically check the value compared to the current statistic, and then keep on checking thereafter to make sure that the leaderboard is up to date. Not ideal, but I've seen some varied timings in the update. When you're dealing with thousands and thousands of users, it's definitely not viable to be pulling down the entire database and then processing it locally on the client. you do want that to happen on Playfab side. If you've got a really small game, maybe there's only a couple hundred users, then you can rather store this information as a title data set, maybe somehow. Or if you've got server authority, if you've got a multiplayer game and you've got server authority, then it would be better for the server to process that information, like all these statistics, the high scores, the XPs and whatever, and then just set a variable, a title data variable, rather than trying to pull down a delayed leaderboard. But there you go. Do with that information what you will. Right, so we've got our statistics. The next step then is to do the leaderboard, to get the leaderboard. And we're going to do a public void get leaderboard. And that's going to be based on a key, which will be the statistic name. Once again, is Playfab client API dot get leaderboard. And if I just stop there for a second, you can also get leaderboard around player, like I mentioned before. So we just want get leaderboard, then it's a new get leaderboard request, followed by the response. The error. And then we're just going to go and separate those. Right, then the statistic name is going to equal the key. And is there anything else we need? If you don't set the start position, it'll just default to 0. So that's fine. Max result counts. Yes, we just want to get the top 10. Or even, let's just get the top 5. So you might want to make that a parameter of this function if you're wanting to use this function in more ways than one. Then we're going to go and paste this, and it's going to be get leaderboard and our error message as well. Once we have got that error, that leaderboard, then we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to broadcast an event with that information for us. Now for this one, we're going to broadcast with the key, and then the int over here is actually going to be Playfab leaderboard entry, but it's going to be a list of Playfab leaderboard entry, and it's going to be on leaderboard retrieve. So on leaderboard retrieve dot invoke, and we are going to give it the key and also response dot leaderboard. As you see, leaderboard, there is a list of player leaderboard entry. What we do want to make sure as well is, let's just do a null check. Make sure that the leaderboard is not null. Okay, so we've got our 3 functions, our get statistic, set statistic, and get leaderboard. And then in our user profile, we can add in a few functions to deal with that. So we don't need public, it's just going to be void get leaderboard. This one is specific to getting the leaderboard for a level. And it's going to be user account manager dot instance dot get leaderboard for level. And then we're going to call get leaderboard level in our sign in after we've done our get user data. So we get the user data, we get the leaderboard for level, and then that'll broadcast the information, and then we can listen to that information as well. So likewise, we've got our get leaderboard. We're going to do our Well, let's actually just subscribe to those events first of all. So user account manager dot on leaderboard retrieve dot add listener. Leaderboard retrieved. Go and create or generate that method and remove the listener for that. And then we're going to just go and move that function down to the bottom. And that is key. And that is leaderboard entries. Yeah, that's fine. So we received that leaderboard over there. And then we can say if the key is equal to level, then we can do something with that. And we're just going to copy the same way we've done this, where we pass out the profile data. We're just going to say on level or on leaderboard level updated. And that's going to be list of Playfab dot client models dot Playfab leaderboard entry. There we go. Okay, so then we just broadcast that leaderboard. And we're doing it granular like this, where we're specifically looking for level because our UI scripts need to respond to one particular leaderboard. Okay, then we need a UI script to handle receiving that information and then instantiating the entries here. So we're going to create another script, UI leaderboard levels. And we're going to put it on scoreboard. Okay, so we need the transform. Well, actually, what I'm going to do here is pull in my object pulling script that is available on my GitLab snippets. I'll put it in the comments as well, but it's just a very handy object pulling script that I use with everything. So it's a generic object pull script, so it can inherit anything, and then it's just got a get from object pull and a return to object pull. So very handy. I'll show you how we can use that now. So in the UI script, we're going to create a UI leaderboard entry. This is going to be the script that goes on the prefab that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So this high score entry, we've got UI leaderboard entry script on there. And then we need to make an object pull script based on UI leaderboard entry. So we create another script here. Object pull, or let's just say pull UI leaderboard entry. So it's of the type UI leaderboard entry. And it's going to inherit from object pull of type leaderboard entry there. And the script really doesn't need any body or anything. It just needs to be that. It's of type UI leaderboard entry. In our UI leaderboard entry script, this is where we just need some references to the text elements. So it's going to be text name text and text for value text. Then we're just going to have a public void set leaderboard entry, and we're going to set it with playfab dot client models dot playfab leaderboard entry, and it's going to be name text dot text equals entry dot so the name is going to be we should use display name, but we're going to have to just update display name in accordance with our user data's player name. We'll get to that in a second. For now, we also want to add in the position over here. So entry dot position. And then value text text is going to equal entry dot stat value dot to string. Okay, so that'll set our leaderboard entry, the position, and the display name. Our UI leaderboard level script, this is where we're going to listen for those changes from the UI profile script. So we can do on enable, on disable, and UI profile dot not UI profile, user profile, sorry. And then that's going to be leaderboard level updated, generate the method for that, move it down. And that's going to be leaderboard entries. Remove the listener. And in here, we also need to have our reference to the object pool. So it's going to be pool UI leaderboard. And then we can say UI leaderboard entry equals pool dot get from object pool. And then entry dot set leaderboard entry in accordance with our oh wait, well, obviously we need our for loop through the leaderboard entries. And then it's going to be leaderboard entries I. That'll then set it. We can also make sure that we don't just keep adding onto them. So we'll need to keep a list of UI leaderboard entry to say existing entries. And we can add then over here at the end, we're going to add that entry to the list. And then before we do anything, we're just going to go and reverse through that and remove them all. So if the count is above 0, then we're going to go and remove them all from that list by reversing through it. Obviously, when you're removing something from a list, if you remove it at 0, you increment to 1, you know, you've cut the list down. You're going to keep missing every other one. So in order to loop through a list and then remove something, you got to do it in reverse order. And then we're going to go pool dot return to object pool, and it's going to be existing entries I and then existing entries dot remove at I suppose I could have just cleared it thereafter actually. Instead of removing one at a time, it's probably better to just clear. In which case I actually didn't need to go and do a reverse loop through it, but oh well. Okay, and then we go and add all the entries, we set them all, and that is that. Okay, so the only thing we need to hook up our increase. Oh no, we're not going to do increase high score. We're actually just going to base it on level. So we don't even need that button anymore. It's unnecessary. We need to just drop in our object pool. We're going to put the object pool over here. So we've already got pool UI leaderboard. It's got the prefab assigned to it. It doesn't need to be a singleton because we are referencing it directly. And then we can just go and drag and drop that reference over there. So the reasons on content over here is so that it spawns the items directly under this parent. We don't have to reference another parent. So in our UI profile, we add XP. We then set user data. We can go user account manager dot instance. We don't actually do it there. We want to put it over here, and it's going to be statistic. The key is going to be level, and the value is going to be profile data dot level. Float to int. Statistic does have to be an int. So we're going to do mathf. Well, first of all, let's just convert that. Put that outside. Mathf dot floor. We just go floor to int actually. And we don't need the int conversion there. So we floor to int because remember we're using level in a different way where the decimal value is the progress towards the next level. Okay, when we set our player name, we are doing set user data. We also want to set the display name. So back in the user account manager, let's add that. We can add as part of user data. Public void update will set display name and string. And then we're going to do Playfab client API dot update display title display name. We're going to do a new request followed by the response and the error. And then we're going to go separate that out, and in the request we're going to say display name equals display name. Okay, that's it for that one, and it's going to be successful and unsuccessful. Okay, that's that for display name. Now we just need to call it over here. After we set the username, we're going to say user account manager dot instance dot set display name in accordance with player name. There we go. Now, if display name is something that multiples are going to have, there is a setting in the Playfab title settings where you can say non-unique display names are allowed, just to avoid duplicates or invalid display name sets, because it will return an error if there's already someone with the same display name by default. Okay, so we can go and turn that off. Don't think I'm forgetting anything yet. Got that, and that, yeah. So we sign in with device. Okay, there, successful login. We get the user data. We got the leaderboard as well. Now, obviously, the leaderboard hasn't got any statistic yet. So when we click the add XP over here, it should then do set user data, statistic, get user data. And let's turn that off and turn it back on because we haven't linked up any get leaderboard after updating it. Sign in, success. Okay, now we do have a null ref. Let's see. Oh, yeah, right. In our prefab, the UI prefab, we haven't actually hooked up the name text and the value text. Let's try that again. Sign in. All right, there we go. We have the incorrect name, but we have something. So if we go and say Tommy, we add some XP. Let's get to, yeah, okay, we're on level 10 now. We turn that off. Okay, there we go. We've got Tommy, who is now level 10 on the scoreboard. And if we were to go and create another account, or I believe this one still works. Yes. Okay, we've got Fred, get user data. Set the statistic. Doesn't look like the get leaderboard. Okay, there we go. We've got the leaderboard back now. We are now level 3. Okay, we've got there level 3. The name needs to be updated though. Let's change it to ET. How about that? Yeah, if we run it again, sign in. Okay, it hasn't updated just yet. The name. Well, actually, the name should have updated. Let's try Bobo. Set display name was updated. Okay, Bobo was updated there. So it seems like the display name needs to be a minimum of 3 characters probably. But there we go. Tommy, level 10, Bobo, level 3, and the scoreboard is working somewhat. Okay, I'm actually not going to go any further with this. If you wanted to then link up, activate, or updating the high score thereafter, I'm sure you guys can figure that out. But there you go. The basics are done. So congrats. Cheers.